The way you beat a guy like that, you're not going to outbox him. If you're waiting on him and he's initiating and he's feinting you into counters and then he's countering the counter, you're going to lose that fight.
Well, AJ's chin's gone, right? Like, and I'm not saying that I believe that. I don't believe that. I think getting beaten up by Daniel Dubois does not mean your chin's gone, especially when you keep getting up and you've managed to rock him late in the fight and you stayed in the fight. And I think Daniel Dubois is a freak like... You know, AJ is a freak. He's a one-off. He's not. Jake Paul is not Daniel Dubois. But some people are genuinely giving Jake Paul a chance. That's blowing my mind here.
Now, looking at the age difference, we've got 28 years old compared to 36 years old. So I guess the advantage there goes a little bit towards Jake Paul. 28-year-old is better than a 36-year-old.
Max Kellerman recently shared a surprising take on the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua matchup. In his view, while Joshua remains a highly skilled former heavyweight champion, the years may not be working in his favor anymore. Jake Paul, on the other hand, carries the advantages of youth, momentum, and fearlessness. Kellerman suggests that if Joshua wants to secure a victory, he'll need to fight with the hunger and urgency of his younger self. Staying busy, pushing the pace, and refusing to let Jake outwork him at any point in the fight.
And he's feinting you into counters and then he's countering the counter. You're going to lose that fight. Joshua has to impose his size, strength, youth, go to the body. He has to be willing to take certain risks. And if he does that...
Kellerman went a step further than most analysts by suggesting that Jake Paul genuinely has a path to victory, even as others claim he's risking his life by sharing a ring with a former heavyweight champion. He pointed out how much Jake has evolved mentally over the years. With multiple fights behind him, a variety of high-pressure situations, and plenty of time in the spotlight, Jake has learned how to stay composed when everything is on the line. According to Kellerman, nerves won't be a factor for Jake at all. Big stages don't scare him anymore, they motivate him. Kellerman even said Jake has a 100% chance to win, not because he's guaranteed to beat Joshua, but because he fully trusts his preparation, his skill set, and the team guiding him. Meanwhile, some analysts are predicting a possible upset for an entirely different reason. They argue that Joshua isn't the same fighter he once was. Age, slower reflexes, and the loss of that early, explosive version of AJ have opened the door, at least in their eyes, for Jake Paul to shock the world.
Experience that Jake has gained in the 5 years he's been in the sport. To be in your 12th or 13th fight in front of 80,000 people at AT&T Stadium in front of 125 million viewers, that's not experience you can gain normally. So he's gonna go into that event very calm and very composed, and I fully believe that he does 100% think he's going to beat Anthony Joshua, yes.
What about the weight? Will there be a limit for Joshua?
So there's a lot of discussion around the weight. Joshua fought Usyk twice. Both of those times, Usyk was 221 pounds. Joshua was 240 to 245. When Jake fought Mike Tyson last year, 227 pounds. I expect Jake will come in anywhere between 225 and 230, and Anthony Joshua has a weight limit of 245 pounds.
There will be those, as you're aware, that will look at it and criticise this fight. There already have been, haven't there? They'll say it's a real mismatch. What would you say to them? Are we going to be watching sport at its purest?
I would say it's much less of a mismatch than what you saw with AJ and Francis Ngannou, who a massive man, but relatively no boxing experience. I would say it's much less of a mismatch than AJ's 9th or 10th fight against guys who've been knocked out 20 to 25 times. Given AJ's pedigree, Jake is built for this. Jake is built for the big moments. So do I think it's dangerous for Jake Paul? Absolutely. Do I think it's also dangerous for Anthony Joshua? 100%.
I mean, we're just watching some of these punches being thrown now. Can he take something like that, Jake Paul?
Hey, Alexander Usyk took it, right? I think that was a perfect 1-2 combination by Joshua, again, on a fairly stationary fighter in Francis Ngannou, who had a good performance against Tyson Fury. But I don't think Tyson Fury took that fight serious for one.
They argue that while Joshua once dominated heavyweights with explosive aggression, the current version of AJ fights far more cautiously, and, according to critics, is easier to hit than he used to be. On the other side, Jake Paul has made steady progress. His punching power has increased, his conditioning has sharpened, and his fundamentals have become noticeably more polished compared to his early fights. From this perspective, the age gap and contrasting trajectories of both fighters make the matchup far more intriguing than most people initially assumed.
Incredibly well for Paul. He's not going to land on Joshua, is he? Joshua's going to be far too skilled in evading whatever Jake Paul could throw at him.
Because I don't believe he's an evading fighter. I think he's one of those fighters that is extremely powerful to where a fighter is simply afraid. The problem is that all of the pressure's on Joshua at the moment. So Jake Paul, if he gets knocked out in 12 seconds, he should get knocked out. The problem is as soon as Joshua starts taking damage, all of a sudden he's thinking, the world is watching me, I'm a professional fighter, and I'm getting beat off a YouTuber. All of the pressure is in Joshua, and that's a lot that can weigh on a man.
Jake Paul can't damage him, though. Like
people can damage him, though. He's went down.
No, people can.
World
people
champion.
can. Yeah. No, like Alexander Usyk can, Daniel Dubois can, but these are supreme athletes. Jake,
completely correct. Yes, there's a difference in someone who's been boxing their entire life versus a YouTuber. I completely understand that, but you can't deny that Jake Paul has power. I think it's one of his only attributes. I think he's a very poor boxer, but what he does have is a weird technique where you don't know what
he's got power. How do we know he's got power?
He's knocked people out.
What Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley?
Yeah.
Tyron Woodley was
like,
arguably one of the best UFC fighters there's ever been.
Mate. Like,
Mate, I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that he's going to go in there and walk Joshua all over. But you can't deny that he has lights out power. It's just
I would deny that. I would deny that he has that kind of power.
Yeah, in an amateur boxing ring, yeah, fine. But not against a two-time world champion. We're talking about here.
Again, I understand the contempt in what I'm saying, and I do see how it is completely stupid thinking YouTuber could break Anthony Joshua. But the thing is that he's going to be training for this fight. Joshua has all of the world looking at him thinking you should walk him over. If it gets 2 rounds, 3 rounds inside, I think Joshua loses.
Yeah. You think he gets beat?
I mean, I think the pressure will get to him. I think if he loses to Jake Paul, he's the embarrassment to boxing. And if you get inside 3 rounds where you've not put him away like everyone thinks you will, all of a sudden that pressure to finish the fight as he should is going to gain and gain and gain.
Is there any truth in this, Jamie? Can you see a world where Dan's theory is basically this geezer can punch and he therefore has a puncher's chance? I think he's got no chance. Like slim, if none.
No chance.
None. Literally none.
No chance.
No. It's one of them, innit? I honestly, without going like extreme, Dan, I think Anthony Joshua, if he could only use one hand, wins the fight. I honestly do.
This is the thing, and I love Joshua. You know, he's arguably the pride of Britain when it comes to boxing. He's a great fighter. But could you say he's past his best? Could you say that he's been tested too many times? The thing that it relates to me is when you look at Silva in the UFC, as soon as he got knocked out, his chin became glass. And I think that's the same with Joshua. I don't think he can take a punch anymore. I think he's one of those people where it's almost he damages way too easy now. And it's one of those things where I think when you're a boxer and you've had a few defeats and you've had a few...
Tony Jeffries, the former Olympic boxer, offered a different perspective on why Jake Paul shouldn't be underestimated. He pointed out that Jake has access to every resource a modern fighter could want. Elite coaches, top-level strength and conditioning teams, nutrition experts, sports psychologists, and high-quality sparring partners. With his financial backing, Jake can build a flawless training camp without needing to cut corners. Jeffries also emphasized that Jake fully understands this is the biggest test of his career, which means he'll prepare with maximum intensity. Beyond that, Jake holds a clear age advantage. In boxing, Jeffries noted, youth is often one of the biggest weapons a fighter can have. Younger athletes recover quicker, train longer, and enter the ring with more energy and physical freshness.
Looking at the age difference, we've got 28 years old compared to 36 years old. So I guess the advantage there goes a little bit towards Jake Paul. 28-year-old is better than a 36-year-old. But that being said, we've got talking about experience and everything else, what comes with being 36 years old at Anthony Joshua's level. And then, like I mentioned, the heavyweights kind of seem to prime a little bit older. Now, coming down to the height and the weight, this is the big one. 6'1" versus 6'6". 200 pounds versus 252 pounds. We got a 252 pounder there in Anthony Joshua. The reach advantage is a lot, which we would expect. Amateur fights, we can see that Jake's only had one, where AJ's had 43, but 43 of them are including at the highest level, Olympic level. And yes, he won the Olympic bloody gold medal, if I don't need to remind you. Then the pro record, Jake Paul has had 13 fights, lost 1. AJ has had 28 fights and he's lost 4 with 25 KOs. And the one person that Jake Paul lost to was Tommy Fury. Now, can we compare Tommy Fury with Anthony Joshua? Not at all. It's like night and day. So now I'm going to talk about the rules of this fight, and I'll give you my prediction, which is going to shock a lot of people after this. So, what are the rules? The bout will take place at a heavyweight, obviously. It's going to be 8 3-minute rounds. You might think, well, that's better for Jake Paul, and I'm thinking, not really. It's better for Anthony Joshua because he's just going to go all out for them 8 3-minute rounds. And imagine that, Anthony Joshua blasting at you, 6'6", whatever he is, 250 pounds, throwing big bombs at you. Anyway, both fighters will be using 10-ounce gloves for the duration of the contest. Why have they got that on there? It says both fighters will be wearing 10-ounce gloves for the duration of the contest. What do you expect? Them to take them off halfway through and switch them to 12s? But I guess these days, anything happens in boxing, right? The boys will follow similar rules to Jake Paul and Mike Tyson in November, but that fight was 8 2-minute rounds and 14-ounce gloves. Not similar if it's smaller gloves and 2-minute rounds. Who wrote this for DAZN? It marks the first time Joshua will have contested less than 10 rounds since...
Meanwhile, several analysts highlighted a completely different issue, one that has less to do with the fighters and more to do with the state of boxing itself. They argued that the sport created the scenario. Even though Anthony Joshua is a former world champion and Olympic gold medalist, the biggest payday of his career came from Jake Paul's offer. That alone proves how much attention, money, and global interest Jake brings, often more than top-ranked heavyweight contenders. Experts say that if a Jake Paul purse exceeds what Joshua would earn in a typical heavyweight title fight, it's proof the industry has shifted. Crossover events are now part of boxing's reality. And in that environment, you can't blame fighters for choosing the most lucrative opportunity available. Some critics claim Joshua can't take a punch anymore or that his chin has been compromised after past knockout losses. But analysts push back on that narrative. They explain that losing to an elite heavyweight like Daniel Dubois doesn't suddenly mean Jake Paul can do the same. Joshua still possesses world-class skills, tremendous punching power, and a decade of top-level experience. Many fans are exaggerating his decline. If Joshua stays sharp, disciplined, and focused, he still has every tool needed to win this matchup convincingly.
Jake Paul, and this is the real funny thing, he's giving Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul is giving Anthony Joshua, the heavyweight legend, right, in our lifetime, his career high payday. Jake Paul is the fucking A-side. Jake Paul is saying, you're going to be a 245 maximum, motherfucker. Like, Jake Paul's giving orders here. Jake Paul's first on the fucking headline. Like, that is also blowing my mind. Even Eddie Hearn said in an interview earlier this week, he's going to get more for this than he's going to get to fight Tyson Fury if the Fury fight happens. Like, and speaking of Tyson Fury, and this brings me on to you, Joey Knight. How the fuck has Tyson Fury let Jake Paul put the gloves on and get in there with Anthony Joshua before he did? How are you going to fucking look your mate in the eye?
Fury probably had the offer, mate. He's not into the old circus shows. You know what I mean? He's not into all that malarkey.
Oh my God.
He's probably fuming that his brother didn't get the fight, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But listen, I don't know, man. Like, I look at this fight with Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, and you constantly hear it. You heard it with Mayweather and McGregor, and you hear it with so many fights. Does it damage their legacy? I would like you to give me an example of a time someone's legacy has been damaged.
And Gunner Fury.
From an individual fight. Yeah. No, but in Gunner Fury ain't really, has it? Like, what I'm saying is, I think that having fights over a prolonged period of time, like Roy Jones Jr., that can damage your legacy. But a one-off fight where realistically you're not going to take no damage. But then
Anthony Yarde offered one of the more intense reactions. He warned Joshua not to take Jake Paul lightly and insisted that Joshua should dominate the fight with full seriousness. Yarde pointed out that Jake Paul is extremely skilled at creating hype, attracting attention, and turning any matchup into a worldwide spectacle. That kind of spotlight, he said, can sometimes distract fighters or make them underestimate the moment. According to Yard, if Joshua enters the ring too relaxed or overly confident, Jake Paul has the ability to surprise him and land something unexpected.
Geld, is it not?
Absolutely. I mean, you literally go into survival mode because of the size difference. You know, you question your manhood a lot. Everything goes out the window because, like I say, the power of just a jab. And bearing in mind, when you spawn bigger guys, you must have been in the gym, Joe. You spar people below and above. So, you know, if you're the bigger guy, you bring the power down, you take your time. And AJ was essentially taking his time. And even just flicking out that hand, flicking out that jab, the force is crazy. So I really do fear for Jake Paul.
On power, that's what I mean. People have been ringing in TalkSport, these boxing experts. Who the
Daily Paralish delivered one of the strongest and most emotional reactions to the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua announcement, and his concern was focused entirely on Jake. Paralish admitted he couldn't understand why Jake would accept such a dangerous matchup against a puncher as powerful as Joshua. To him, this wasn't just another blockbuster event or a clever promotional move. This was Jake stepping into a fight that could genuinely put his safety at risk. Paralish highlighted the most obvious but often ignored issue: size and power. Joshua isn't just a heavyweight. He's a former unified world champion with knockout ability that has ended fights at the highest level. Paralish argued that standing in front of someone with Joshua's kind of punching strength is a completely different threat compared to anything Jake has ever experienced. Even one clean shot, he warned, could change everything. Although he acknowledged Jake's growth, training, and confidence, Paralish's main message was caution. He stressed that this matchup isn't about hype. It's about real danger. In his view, Jake is stepping into the most hazardous challenge of his career, and the consequences could be far more serious than fans understand.
If Joshua lands clean on Jake Paul's chin, he could end up in a very bad way. So I know it's all entertainment and they're going to break records and Netflix and all that kind of stuff, but we have to understand the dangers that are involved in boxing. And, you know, that's why I say people got to respect Jake Paul for doing this, because he's at risk.
He's at a big risk indeed. I saw something that David Hay was saying where people were kind of worrying for Jake Paul, and David Hay was like, well, he's only going to take a lot of damage if he goes and gets beaten up for 12 rounds. He just gets knocked out in one punch. That's probably one of the best things that could happen in terms of taking the least damage possible.
Yeah, David Hay is right, but also one punch can end your life as well. So you got the two sides. Yeah, he could get badly beaten up if it went 12 rounds, which can be worse.
The boxing world is divided, but many are openly worried that Jake Paul is stepping into a dangerous situation. Critics argue that he's facing a natural heavyweight with real knockout power, and no amount of confidence can change the physical realities of fighting someone like Anthony Joshua. In their view, Jake may be courageous, but one clean punch from Joshua could end the fight instantly. They believe this matchup is far more dangerous than anything Jake has ever faced in his career. However, not everyone sees it that way. Some experts argue that Jake Paul's confidence could actually work in his favor. They point out that his entire boxing journey has been built on proving doubters wrong, and he has consistently performed best when everyone expected him to fail. These analysts emphasize that Jake never shies away from big challenges, and taking on Joshua is simply the latest example of him stepping into something massive with full belief in himself.
Paul has lost his mind. This is probably the worst mistake of his career. Even in the poster, you can see this is a David and Goliath story here. I mean, there's times where I thought Jake is a cruiserweight. There's times where I thought even he could be a light heavyweight. And now he's stepping in with one of the most chiseled, bona fide heavyweights in the world right now in Anthony Joshua. I'm about to break the internet over Jake Paul's face. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but it sounds fucking demented, terrifying. And speaking of the insanity of this thing, here is what the first line is. Jake as a plus 800. I have a feeling that's going to shift even more toward AJ. AJ's the 18-wheeler going 90 down the straightaway, and Jake is in a fucking golf cart going 10 miles an hour, headed right back at the 18-wheeler. It's going to be freaking destruction. Look at the reach. He's got a 6-inch reach on Jake, and trust me, the Chloe concept has told me the 6-inch.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next one.